Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So many people have made it into, well, Diablo 4 for the beta, and they were very impressed. But, obviously Diablo 4 doesn't come out for another 2 months, and, well, a little bit less than 2 months now. And maybe you want to take a look at the rest of the Diablo franchise. Maybe Diablo 4 has sparked your interest into what is a very rich and very great franchise. Now, what I'd like to do today is I'd like to take you through the past of Diablo and talk about which games you should probably play and which games you might want to avoid. To start off this list, the most obvious and the easiest one to start with is, of course, Diablo 1. Diablo 1 is literally the game that started the entire franchise. And without a doubt, it is the most iconic of probably the entire lot. Now, how could you potentially play Diablo 1? Well, Good Old Games, which is a service that you can go online and use, is a company that literally goes through the process of fixing these games, making them work again, and in the process, for pretty much any computer that you'd want to play them on. So even if you're running like Windows 10 or Windows 11, they should still play just fine. Also, they upgrade the graphics, make it so that you can do like higher resolutions and things like that. But for the most part, Diablo 1 is perfectly playable on modern PCs. Now the question remains, should you play Diablo 1? I think the answer to that question is definitely yes. 100% yes. And the reason why I'm going to recommend playing Diablo 1 is because, number one, Diablo 4 is taking a lot of inspiration from Diablo 1 in the way that it plays the game. On top of that, one of the most iconic encounters in Diablo 1, the Butcher, also happens in this particular game. Now, in Diablo 1, you can choose from 3 different heroes. You can choose from the Warrior, the Rogue, or the Sorcerer. Now, the Warrior, the Rogue, and the Sorcerer all continue into Diablo 2, and on top of that, they also... the Rogue continues into Diablo 4, because obviously the Rogue is one of the playable characters in Diablo 4. Now, the characters are very basic in this particular version of the game, and the game itself is pretty basic. You can walk, you cannot run, there is no stash, and quite honestly, if you look at the panel, it looks very similar to Diablo 2, and even very similar to Diablo 4 in a lot of ways, because the game really hasn't changed all that much. We have a mana globe, we have a health globe, we have potion slots, we've got a left click and a right click. And honestly, for the most part, there's really not a huge difference in the way that the games actually play. If you like playing Diablo 4, if you had fun with the Diablo 4 beta, you'd probably have fun with this game too. Now, granted, the graphics on this game are a little old. Obviously, this game came out in 1996, so it has seen better days as far as graphics is concerned. On top of that, it is also a bit dated in, the technology that it's used. So it's missing some of the more quality of life features. But that's, again, to be expected for a game from 1996. Now, in this game, you do travel through Tristram, and you eventually make your way to the underground to kill Diablo. This particular character is actually just about to kill Diablo. So... we could actually go do that real quick for fun. Now, this character has been decked out with just about everything that you can possibly deck out. King's Mace of Haste, I've got an Ice Plate of Harmony, Crown of the Stars, Blessed Shield of the Absorption, Obsidian Amulet of the Tiger, and Ring of the Zodiac. And I'm rocking some pretty good potions and everything. As you can see, the town is littered with items because there's no stash. And we also have Deckard Cain.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
Now, Deckard Cain is a mainstay of the series, and he follows us from Diablo 1 to Diablo 2, and from Diablo 2 to Diablo 3, and unfortunately they killed him in Diablo 3, and I don't know why, but that was really stupid, and they should bring him back. But there's many characters here that you'll see throughout the franchise. For instance, Griswold not only is in Diablo 1, but you also find him in Diablo 2 in Tristram. Tristram is also... something that appears in the Diablo franchise over and over and over again. You go to Tristram in Diablo 1, you go back to Tristram in Diablo 2 to rescue Cain, you also go back to Tristram in Diablo 3 with the Darkening of Tristram, and in Diablo 4, when you meet the wolf, the wolf actually takes you to a recreation, or maybe even the real thing, of Tristram. That area that the wolf takes you in that quest in Diablo 4 is this town again. Which honestly makes this town a very interesting place. Now, there's quite an interesting and rich story in Diablo 1, and that's one of the reasons why I would definitely recommend playing it. How long does it take to play Diablo 1? Honestly, not very long. It's only going to take you about anywhere between 3 to 4 days, maybe a little bit less if you look up guides. There's not really increased difficulty modes except for in multiplayer. So if you play single player, it's just a one-time playthrough. And once you kill Diablo, that is the end. And in fact, we can go kill Diablo right now just for the fun of it, because this save file was actually made right before I was about to kill Diablo. And why not? Let's see here. I'm going to use my my mana shield. I'm going to drink a mana potion before I go down, so we get a little bit of mana protection here. I don't really have much mana, but it'll come in handy. And let's go kill Diablo himself. Now, this is not meant to be a lore video, by the way. And I don't want it to be a lore video. So we're going to avoid the more obvious lore stuff like the cutscenes for now. I really just want to show you the gameplay of the particular games. And let's get these guys out of the way. Come on, Diablo, let's go over here outside of the fireball range. Let's go, buddy! Honk. And we're gonna skip this cutscene. There we go. So that is the conclusion of Diablo 1, is essentially when you kill Diablo himself. Now, Diablo 1 leads into Diablo 2, of course. And Diablo 2 is the continuation of the story. And I would definitely recommend that you play Diablo 2. Among all of the Diablo games, Diablo 2 is by far the best of the series. And recently, you don't have to play the old version that came out in 2000. Recently, they came out with a new version, which is Diablo 2 Resurrected. Diablo 2 Resurrected is a very recent production and has many of the modern conveniences that you would expect in a Diablo franchise. And a really cool logo. Now, in Diablo 2, one of the things that you have to know is that Diablo 2 is a game based around multiple difficulty settings, and not the kind of difficulty settings that you're used to in video games. In many video games, you have like an easy, a normal, and a hard mode, and if you beat it in normal difficulty, there's really no reason to go back and beat it in hard difficulty except for to have a challenge. But that's not how Diablo works. How Diablo works is there are 3 difficulty settings, and the 3 difficulty settings basically give you the ability to continue the adventure in new and more exciting ways. So when you first start a character, you have access to only 1 or 2 difficulty settings. However, when you level up to around level 35 to 40, and you finally beat the game the first time in normal difficulty, you get access to a second difficulty called Nightmare difficulty. Nightmare difficulty is harder. The resistances are brought down even further, the monsters hit harder, and they start to get resistances to the elements that you're putting out. In Hell difficulty, your resistances go down even further, and eventually it gets to the point where they are capable of dishing out even more damage, and they are immune to many of the elements that you put out. And things become more and more difficult as you go along. A lot of the times I liken normal difficulty to a tutorial of the game. Nightmare difficulty is when the game actually starts, and Hell difficulty is where you actually beat the game and you gain mastery over the game itself. Generally, like I said, around level 35 to 40 is when you beat normal. Nightmare difficulty is generally around like level 60 to 70, and hell difficulty is honestly whenever you can, whenever you can get your character strong enough to actually do the task. Now I'm going to take you really quickly through. Let's go to Chaos Sanctuary. That sounds like fun. And we're going to do it in hell difficulty because this character is very well geared. Now, in the process of playing Diablo, one of the things that you're going to notice is that Diablo 2 is literally like the grandfather of pretty much all Diablo games, or all ARPGs just in general. The skill tree is very robust and diverse, and you can build all sorts of different characters. There are 7 different characters in Diablo 2. The Amazon, the Paladin, the Sorceress, the the Druid, the Necromancer, the Assassin, and also the... Who am I missing? I'm missing somebody. Barbarian. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different ways that you can build these characters. Just to give you an idea, based on my Amazon here, you can build a physical Amazon using the physical Amazon skills. You can build a physical Spearzon, an elemental Spearzon, building the elemental skills. You can build an elemental Javazon using the elemental Javazon skills. A poison Javelin Amazon using the poison javelin skills. You can also build a fire boson, a ice boson, a physical boson, and also, believe it or not, even a Valkazon, which has been done, and a Tankazon using the avoidances. And this is just one character, and it doesn't even encompass all the different ways that you can build characters with these. Now, the game is pretty straightforward, just like Diablo 4. You play through. You have a left click, you've got a right click, so you've got your main ability and you've got your sub ability, and you can of course put other abilities on shortcuts as well. There are tons of different ways that you can build your characters, but this particular one is built around lightning attacks, and as you can see I can pretty much just shred through most of this stuff. Because this character is fully fleshed out and absolutely insane. I have things like Chain of Lightning, which is pretty darn cool, I'm not gonna lie. I've got Charged Bolts. Now, in Diablo 2, one of your main goals is to basically just make really cool builds. Even toward the end of the game, the game itself is really just about coming up with very unique and very interesting ways of building your characters. And that's one of the reasons why my YouTube channel is so focused on teaching mechanics rather than showing you guys builds, because honestly, half the fun of Diablo 2 is in creating those unique and amazing builds. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to rush through here, because there are ways that you can rush through this. And I'm going to pop the seals, and we're going to summon forth the 3 demons that are guarding the seals, Diablo's seals. So the first of the 3 is the Grand Visor of Chaos. And as you can see here, I have a unique item on the ground. This is the Blood Thief Brandy Stock. It's a rather low-level unique, not something that you would particularly use at high level, but a very useful one for a lower-level character. We also have rare items, just like in Diablo 4, and rare items can be extremely powerful. Extremely powerful indeed. And then we also have blue items as well. Now, blue items can actually be extremely powerful, but it depends on the blue item specifically. So, for instance, with this particular item that I have on here, the Lancer's Light Gauntlets of Alcridity, the +3 Javelin and Spear skills with 20% IAS, is actually extremely good for this particular character. So, it's a very, 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 very good blue item. And in that way, Diablo 2 has some very interesting things going on, because in a lot of other games, you know, you have items that are just like, oh, okay, None of the other items are worth using. Pretty much just legendaries. And that was Diablo 3 in a nutshell. It was pretty much only legendaries and set items. In Diablo 2, it's not like that. There are rune words. There are blue items. There are yellow items. There are also even crafted items, as well as set items. And honestly, quite a large number of items, including items that are not in the most legendary, stance, can still be extremely valuable. Let's kill Diablo real quick, just for lulz. And I'm gonna rush through here. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm doing what's called seal popping, because Diablo, when he spawns, will kill all of the monsters that are currently still left alive, as long as I have popped all the seals and killed all the monsters associated with said seals. My goal here is to kill Lord Decease, Infectors of Souls, and also my boy Grand Visor of Chaos. Now, I've already killed Grand Visor of Chaos, and I've already killed Lord Decease, so now we just need to kill Infector of Souls. I'm actually going to pop this seal first. And then we're going to pop this seal. And I'm going to target Infectors of Souls specifically. And as soon as Infector of Souls dies, all of the monsters within the zone also die with him. And Diablo, of course, the namesake of our franchise, is about to spawn. And I'm about to do Diablo dirty because I'm going to kill him in about 3 seconds. Hey, a demon machine. This is a crossbow that has an entire build specifically around just it. The Enchantress, and also the Holy Fire Paladin can also use it as a strider. It's a very interesting helmet, or sorry, it's a very interesting, unique item that you can literally build an entire character around, and it's freaking cool as all get out. Now, Diablo 2, honestly, has been going for about 23 years, so I can't honestly say that this game is not worth playing. This game is 100% definitely worth playing and could totally tide you over in the 2 months between now and Diablo 4's launch. Now, the next game in the series is Diablo 3, and I don't particularly like Diablo 3. And I say that from a standpoint of a person who has put in many hours in Diablo 3. So don't take this the wrong way. Cody. Come here, buddy. Come here. Mr. Squeaky Toy Boy. He's always got to play with his toy while I'm recording a video. Give me this. Give me this squeaky toy. Give me the squeakers. Give me the squeakers. Thank you. Boopins. Why don't you come over here so everybody can see you? Come here. Come here. Say hello to everybody. This is Kubus the monster dog. He's huge. Look at the monsters. He's a monster dog. You got anything to say to the peoples? That's how you feel, huh? So Diablo 3 is one of the less loved franchises, or games of the franchise, and like I said, I say this from a perspective of someone who's put in a lot of time in this game. I have quite a few characters. Let me see if I can actually pull up my character list here. I've got Barbarian, a monk, level 70 Witch Doctor. I've got another monk. I've got level 41 Wizard, level 70 Necromancer, 70 Crusader, 70 Crusader, 70 Crusader, 70 Demon Hunter, and this Crusader, which was brand new. Don't even remember what the hell I was doing with that one. I think it was the Darkening of Tristram event, which was actually kind of cool. Diablo 3 has had a rocky past. When it first started, it wasn't a very good game. It went through some horrible issues with the auction house. There was also a pretty terrible time when basically nobody wanted to play the game. And Then they came out with the Reapers of Soul expansion pack. And the Reaper of Soul expansion pack brought the Necromancer and the Crusader into the game. And it wasn't until the Necromancer and the Crusader came into the game that they actually started to have more of a actual game that people wanted to play. It's my personal opinion that Diablo 3 is not worth a playthrough. If you were going to play a game between now and Diablo 4, Diablo 3 would definitely be one that I would skip. Diablo 3 has a lot of issues with it. Most namely are the sets. And let me see if I can actually just like hop into a game here real quick and show you what I'm talking about. But the game itself is based upon infinite progression. And what I mean by infinite progression is that you essentially have no top end. There's no end to the number of rift numbers, basically, that you can go to. There's no top end, really, to how powerful your character can be. And more often than not, the sets actually will tell you exactly how to play your character and what skills to use. And it's really quite sad, in my opinion, because most of the time when you would play this game, the sets and all the other things would just kind of like hamper your creativity. As you can see, I've got a large number of items here. I even collected a large number of sets. But the thing that I really didn't like about them is that you can see from this particular set, it literally tells you that you need to use multi-shot, vengeance. You use basically things like the your generators give 2 additional hatred and 1 additional discipline, gain 60% damage reduction and 60% increased damage for 8 seconds if no enemy is within 10 yards of you. Like, it literally tells you how to play your character to the point of insanity. And it has garnered quite a bit of hatred among the community as one of the worst, basically, Diablo games of the franchise. And as you can see from my chat down here, one of my friends literally messaging me, telling me I'm a traitor for even being on the game at all, which is pretty hilarious. Almost as if it was scripted, but I guarantee you, I didn't even tell anyone I was going to be hopping on here today to show off some of the game. Now, when you look at the panel does seem a little bit more like Diablo 4's panel than it does like Diablo 3's, Diablo 2's. But the thing is that in Diablo 3 there were no unique items. In Diablo 3, sets had maintained basically the prominence over everything. In Diablo 4, as of right now, there are no sets. In Diablo 4, we also have unique items. And much has changed about Diablo 4 from Diablo 3. As you can tell just by looking at the game, this game has a very almost like cartoony style to it. Completely different than any of the other ways that you would potentially see. When we looked at Diablo 1, Diablo 1 was a very dark, very scary, almost spooky kind of a game. You walked through the halls of the undead, and there were literally screams of the undead as we walked around, demons everywhere in the darkness, and sometimes you couldn't even see into the darkness, how dark it was. But in Diablo 3, there's no darkness. The game is honestly just bright and almost cheery, and many people describe it as World of Warcraft-like. And they're not even joking, because it is very much World of Warcraft-like. Now, in Diablo 4, they went with the Return to Darkness. Now, the Return to Darkness is specifically them trying to return to the roots of what the Diablo franchise is about. In other words, not this game. This game has very much so a different pacing. It has a different just feel entirely. And more often than not, when you play this game, it doesn't really feel like a Diablo game. Now, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad game overall. But I do think that it is a bad game in the Diablo franchise. And I talk a lot of crap about Diablo 3. For a person who put in as many hours as I did into this game, I mean, I honestly I'm kind of embarrassed that I put in the kind of hours that I did into this game, only to find out that I hated it. And it's really, what it really comes down to is that Diablo 2 was such a good game. It was such an amazing game that many of us were willing to give Diablo 3 a chance based solely on how good Diablo 2 was. And Diablo 3 basically lived on that reputation. And we all wanted to love the next game. We all wanted to have fun in the next game. And it just didn't live up to the expectations of Diablo 2. And that should go to tell you just how amazing Diablo 2 is. Now, would I recommend playing Diablo 3 through just one time for the story, at least? Honestly, no. Like, I would just avoid Diablo 3 entirely. It would sour your opinion on the Diablo franchise as a whole. And you'd be better off playing through Diablo 1, playing through Diablo 2. And if you want to know about the story of Diablo 3, my recommendation would just be to either A, go on YouTube and find the find the cinematics, or just watch the cinematics and move on. Because, quite honestly, the story of Diablo 3 isn't really that amazing. Which leads us to the story of Diablo 4. Now, the story of Diablo 4 actually is the story of all of the games. So, Diablo 4 is kind of like the beginning of everything. Lilith and Inarius sneak off, they steal the World Stone, they use the World Stone to create Sanctuary. Well, what is Sanctuary? This is Sanctuary. The world that you are in Diablo 1 is Sanctuary, the world that you are in Diablo 2 is Sanctuary, and the world that you are in Diablo 3 is Sanctuary. And the world that you're in Diablo 4 is Sanctuary. We are in the very world that Inarius and Lilith created to begin with. So, the story of Diablo 4, very much so, is the story of the entire Diablo franchise. How everything came to be. What Inarius and Lilith did after they created the entire world, basically. What they did is they created the Nephilim, which is us. In Diablo 1, Diablo 2, and Diablo 3, we are all Nephilim. We are the creations of Lilith and Inarius. And because of that, we have the powers of both the angels and the demons. Now, if you're waiting for Diablo 4, like I think you are, my suggestion would be to do a quick playthrough of Diablo 1, because Diablo 1 is, quite honestly, a masterpiece. It's a short game, and like I said, it won't take you probably more than 3 or 4 days to run through the entire thing and beat it. Diablo 2, on the other hand, is a masterpiece of a game, which will take you years and decades, and even then you will probably still be interested in playing it even decades later. It's been 23 years, and there are still people like me that have still been playing Diablo 2 for all that period of time. And the really cool thing is with Diablo 2 is that you might put it down for a little while, but you'll always end up picking it back up at some point. For instance, when Diablo 4 comes out, I will most undoubtedly be putting Diablo 2 Resurrected down for a little while, but I will always inevitably come back to Diablo 2. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can go over besides the 3 games, and the last one is Diablo Immortal, and I would not recommend playing Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal is not really the greatest title. It's a mobile game, first off. Second off, it is just filled with microtransactions, predatory practices that will cause you to just waste money. Granted, you can play it without spending money, and if you have the willpower to prevent yourself from spending money on the game, then by all means, maybe give it a playthrough just for the story. Diablo Immortal takes place in between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. So basically the story is essentially kind of like what happened in between when Tyrael destroyed the World Stone in Diablo 2 and when Tyrael finally comes back in Diablo 3. So this is the in-between story. And quite honestly, you could probably skip Immortal entirely and not miss out on any of the story. Because it's really not that important. Also, the reason why I would usually recommend skipping Diablo Immortal is just because I doubt most people are going to have the willpower to not spend money on the game. And also, at the same time, if you don't spend money on the game, you really can't progress very fast, which means that you're going to have to take a really long time going the free route to actually make it through the entire story and finish it. Overall, if I had to rank all of the Diablo games based upon how good they are at this particular point, including Diablo 4, the listing would be Diablo 2 in the number 1 spot, Diablo 1 in the number 2 spot, Diablo 4 in the number 3 spot, Diablo 3 in the number 4 spot, and Diablo Immortal all the way at the bottom in the number 5 slot. Which is why I recommend playing Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, because they are amazing games. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when it's me just talking about the previous games in the franchise and trying to give you an idea of which ones you should play. Now, if you do decide to play some Diablo 2, I have literally thousands of videos on Diablo 2. Pretty much everything you could ever want, to explaining mechanics, to going over unique items, to going over sets, and pretty much everything in between, including solo self-found playthroughs and even builds of my own that I've created over the years. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.